Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to day 3 of remote learning. I'm really happy with what I've been seeing so far, so please keep it up. Just remember to make sure that all work has to be attached. There has to be some sort of picture on Google Classroom or sent to my email or something. Please do not text me pictures of your work. It either needs to be emailed or put up in the Google Classroom, okay? But other than that, I've been really happy with what I've seen so far. If you know people that haven't gotten on yet, please tell them to do so. I have been calling, Miss Paloma's been calling, Miss Latoria's been calling. We need everybody on board for this if this is gonna work, okay? But more importantly, our lesson for today. We are in lesson 2, and it's gonna be the first day of lesson 2. Now, our essential question is still, why is it important to understand all sides of a story? Our focus question is, what are the perspectives of George versus George? And then our content framing question today is where we get our new piece for lesson 2. And that is, what is happening on pages 7 through 17? And now you guys might be thinking, Mr. Cotty, pages 7 through 17 again? Yes, but it's different because now you're actually reading it and you're doing other things with it. Okay, if we had been in a normal classroom, we wouldn't have been breaking this up into such small pieces. And the first day you would have just been doing noticings and wonderings, and then today we'd actually be reading. But don't worry, I'm gonna do some of the reading today, so you don't have to listen to that same lady read it over again if you've already watched that video a bunch of times, okay? But what we're gonna be looking for today on pages 7 through 17 is we're gonna be looking for evidence of similar perspectives. Now, we know that perspectives is points of view. So I'm gonna put POV up there. Similar, we know means the same. And evidence, we know things we're looking for in the text, so I'm gonna put a little magnifying glass over there. So those are my 3 things. Proof of the same point of view, okay? Now, we talked a lot about evidence and why it's important to collect evidence. And as you go through this book, there's gonna be plenty of times where you can gather evidence to prove your point, to maybe support the British, or maybe support the colonists, okay? That's why we set up that chart yesterday. Now, I'm actually gonna start off by reading 8 through 12 with you. And it'd be smart if you were thinking of things that you could find as I was reading that show that both the British and the colonists are actually on the same side on some of this stuff. Now, that sounds crazy, because everything so far is George versus George, colonists versus British. But there are some things you're gonna find that they kind of had similar views on. So, I'm gonna start reading on page 8. We're gonna do 8 through 12, and then we're gonna stop for today. You guys are gonna have some stuff to do after that, but for right now, 8 through 12. At first glance, the year was 1763, and in many ways, George Washington of America and King George of Britain were very much alike. Well, alike means same or similar, so we might be off on the right direction here. Both men had light blue eyes and reddish brown hair. Athletic and dignified in appearance, each stood well over 6 feet tall, which is taller than me, towering above most other men at the time, whose average height was 5'7", which is shorter than me. Both were honest and popular with the public. The public means the people. They liked simple food and much preferred plain clothes to the high fashion outfits of the period, decorated with lace and ruffles and embroidery. George III was sometimes called Farmer George because of his lifelong interest in agriculture. So even though he was a king, he really enjoyed farming. George Washington was a farmer who was happiest when working on his land. Both were excellent horsemen and loved hunting. George III believed that the king should rule America, and for a long time, George Washington thought so too. He even fought bravely alongside the British Army. Whoa. And as I get to that whoa moment, that to me is something that I can't help but notice in my brain. So that's evidence of a similar perspective, is that King George III thought that a king should be ruling America. And even though he's our Mr. America, he's our leader, George Washington thought the same thing. So that's what I'm gonna put down here for myself as one of the things that I found that's evidence of similar perspectives. So George the Third and George Washington both thought a king should rule the colonies. And when I read that for the first time, that was a little bit surprising to me too. So if you're finding it surprising as well, you should. Now, at the bottom here we have Samuel Johnson, who's a great English writer in his day. He said, "Of him we are much inclined to hope great things," meaning they had great hopes for King George, the British people. The people of Great Britain and the people from Britain's American colonies had a lot in common too. So again, we're seeing that there are similarities between the two sides. We just need to find the evidence that it's of what they had that was similar. Most everyone on both sides of the ocean liked their good-natured young patriot king meaning George Washington. English was their main language. After all, 60% of the colonists had British ancestors. London was everyone's capital city, and many Americans proudly thought of England as home. Okay, so that word ancestors means people that came before you, like your grandma, your grandpa, your great-grandma, great-grandpa. Those are your ancestors. So what it's saying is that even though people were living in the colonies, their ancestors were from Great Britain. Great Britain had just won the 7 Years' War, which involved almost every country in Europe and extended all the way to India and Australia. King George was now the ruler of the world's greatest empire. As loyal citizens of Great Britain, colonial soldiers had joined forces with the soldiers from England to fight against France for control of North America. That's something that's super interesting, is that colonial forces joined the British Army to fight France. France is going to come into the picture a little bit later on, and I'm not going to tell you who they're going to help either. When France gave up its territories, jubilant celebrations were held throughout both England and America. It was a big deal because at the time France was one of the major powers, and to defeat them was a very big deal. Who could imagine that the fabric blinding America to Great Britain was all about to unravel, or that the two Georges were about to become bitter enemies? Who could guess that George III would be the last king of America, and that George Washington would one day become the first president? Neither George Washington nor King George III was fully responsible for everything that happened next. Many overthinkers, soldiers, and politicians helped shape the future. Even so, as leaders of the two sides, these two Georges were to become the strongest symbols of their countries for the next 20 years. The different ideas they had stood for would soon turn the whole world upside down. Now, if you watched my other video of background information about the Revolutionary War, this is what I'm talking about. The American colonies were all the way over here. Then you had the massive Atlantic Ocean before you get to Great Britain, and one country within Great Britain was England. Okay? So I hope you guys are able to catch some of the similarities between the two sides and see things they saw that was the same. And you guys should have plenty of evidence of similar perspectives. Now, one of the things you have to do today is you need to answer 2 RACCS questions. Now, your RACCS questions the other day were not very good. Only very few people were able to give me a full 2-point response. Now, that needs to happen for both of these questions. And I'm telling you right now, there's a ton of evidence for these, so if you're not giving it to me, you know what you're not doing correct. The first question is, in what ways are George and George alike? Why do you think that this is important? I'm going to post that question in the classroom. You guys are going to answer it there. The second is, what did the colonists and the British people have in common? Okay, that's the second one. Then, for homework, you guys have to write a summary, okay, of the pages that you read, which is going to be 8 to 12. All right? So now you can listen to me read it again. You can listen to the other video of it. But you need to come up with a summary. Now, summarizing is something that we've talked about many times, but it's something that I want to refresh your memories of. Okay? So when you're writing a summary, you are using, I'm going to pick a different color marker actually. The most important details. And this is a non-fiction text, which is important to remember because we give different summaries for fiction and non-fiction. So you need to give the most important details, but before that you need to give the main idea of the text. The details need to be in chronological order, meaning start to end. Okay? And you need to close it out sum up sentence. Okay? I look forward to reading your guys' RACCS responses. I'm hoping that this time your memories are refreshed. Remember, you're restating, answering 2 pieces of evidence and a sum up for both of them. And then I want a good summary. And when I say important details, I would say 4 to 5 details. Okay? Please make sure you guys are still working hard, completing all this, and submitting it on Google Classroom. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you tomorrow.